Welcome to the Future Tech Radio Show, featuring industry pioneers, technologists, and CEOs across various industries about how the future of technology will shake up the status quo across the globe. Here's your host, Matthew Loughran.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another show of Future Tech. Again, I'm your host, Matthew Loughran. Today, we have an entrepreneur on the show named Christian Zimmerman. Christian is the founder and CEO of Qoins. Qoins is a financial technology company helping people get out of debt faster and save some money. Christian, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Matt. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to have you on the show. Very interested to jump into a couple things right directly about yourself and Qoins. So can you maybe share with us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to start Qoins?
Absolutely. So yeah, as you mentioned, Christian, I'm 26. I started Qoins right after graduating from college. So I went to Georgia State University here in downtown Atlanta. Grew up in Atlanta my whole life. Was born in Houston, but like I said, just grew up in Atlanta. And so, graduated December 2015, so almost 2016. And right after college, about 6 months, really had these student loans just hit after the grace period, and then also just finding myself with some personal loans that I had taken out so that I could graduate, and really just kind of fell into this swamp of debt, and found myself not really understanding kind of how I was managing my money and how poorly I was managing it, thinking I had this good paying job coming out of college, and I just figured it out later, and so. Yeah, as an entrepreneur, I was working at this other startup, wanted to do my own thing, and found that other people kind of had the same problem. And so, I tried to solve it for myself, and then found that there was a need for something in the bigger market, to be put out there. So that's what I did.
Yeah, you probably just described, I'd say, the journey for tens of thousands of individuals graduating college every year right now. Right. So, coming out with a boatload of student loans, all right, coming in, if they're lucky to get a job, they get a job. Then all of a sudden, 6 months later, those first payments start hitting, right? So I would definitely say you guys definitely have a market for what you're doing. Can you tell me what really motivates you to help these individuals?
Yeah. So we, again, like when I started, a lot of it was very much just tailored towards student loans. And what motivated me was kind of like the personal pain point I had, and just seeing a lot of my friends graduate with kind of the same instability. And then as over the last 3 years, as I've been working on Qoins, I've noticed kind of like a transition in not just automating your finances to kind of, smooth things out, but really understanding like exactly where you are, the fundamentals of personal finance. And, some simple questions that you ask people that, really they don't know. And so, my mom, my dad, they've always been pretty good with their money, but they've kind of fallen like little hurdles themselves. And, I've seen kind of the stresses that come with the debt burden. And, it definitely can cause a lot of strife in relationships, in your own life. And so, there's a lot of things, just that a lot of baggage that come with it. And so, that's really what I wanted to solve. And so over the last few years, we've kind of like transitioned to focusing on how we kind of build those fundamentals up so that you can start making impacts on those goals that you're trying to achieve long term.
You mentioned that you ask people a couple different questions typically. Can you mention what some of those common questions are so our audience can get a better understanding as well?
Yeah, so like usually it's more like, how much did you spend this month, right? And most people don't even know, they can think off the top of their head, kind of like their monthly, regular expenses, but then you add in, eating out, going out to the bars, or like, shopping. A lot of those things add up, and a lot of people forget to add those minute expenses into their budget. So that's a big one that we usually ask. Then also asking like, how much income do you bring in on a monthly, weekly, biweekly, yearly basis? Some people will say like what's on their employer card, right? Say, oh, I make $65,000 a year, but do you really after taxes, right? How much is being taken out? How many dependents do you have? what are you really going home with, and then understanding how much you're spending versus how much you're actually bringing in. And so those are like usually, again, very basic fundamentals around, income, cash flow, inflows to outflows. But, a lot of people just do not know that.
So it sounds like you're also deploying a base level of pure financial literacy with your financial technology. How does that technology work? Like, how is it a web-based platform? Is it a mobile application? Can you describe a little bit about that?
Exactly. So we're a mobile app. We how it works is you sign up, you get matched, or we ask you what is financial goal is it you're trying to achieve? Is it, paying off debt, that's like our bread and butter and what we like to primarily focus on. But are you also trying to save money? Are you trying to kind of build a better budget? Are you trying to hit specific goals around these bigger buckets? So we'll ask those questions. Then we'll actually match you with a certified financial coach. That coach will then kind of go more in depth into your finances. You would then link your accounts that you're trying to analyze. And then on the back end, after you've met with your coach, you get in the automation piece, which helps you kind of start, selecting your savings method, however you want to save. And then also your payment methods and how you want to make extra payments towards your loans. So really tying in the personal aspect with the coach and the accountability, and then the automation, which is kind of the back end tool, not so much the front end robo advising. We would like to bring the two together.
Interesting. Okay, so you really have that personal touch, that coaching aspect. And obviously, coaches can be a very big part in no matter what you're doing to succeed. So it actually maybe transition that question a bit then to you from a career perspective or an entrepreneur perspective. Do you have any coaches yourself or mentors, that you might have learned some lessons from that have helped you?
Oh, yeah. I try to surround myself with as many smarter, wiser individuals as I can. And I think I have mentors but I have mentors for specific things and for different parts of my life journey, my business journey, right? So, obviously you start off with my parents, but as I got into college career, I have, one of my closest mentors that I'm still very close with. His name's Roger. He's actually, I think, kind of like what helped me elevate myself to wanting to do my own thing and helping me travel abroad, start small businesses, and then like learning kind of what it is I wanted to do long term. And then now that I've started Qoins, now surrounding myself with people that have been there, have done that, have exited, and can help me kind of navigate kind of those waters. Because like we were talking before, it's just things can go wrong really fast and things can go right really fast. And that emotional roller coaster is sometimes just very daunting, and it's very lonely too. So you got to figure out, how do you get that feedback and advice from people that maybe haven't gone through it, but which you find people that you have. Those are the type of people you want to surround yourself around. And so I try to do that as much as I can, always learning.
No, excellent. I think, part of the journey, whether being an entrepreneur or technologist or deploying technology into the world, it's all about that iteration, right? So that rapid iteration, customer feedback loops and so forth. And obviously when you're looking to scale businesses or, enhance your footprint, it's not always sunshine and rainbows, right? So there's definitely challenges that definitely come up in there. So maybe kind of pose this to you as well as, currently at, the current stage of your company, what would you think is some of your top challenges that you're facing right now? And, how do you anticipate actually being able to overcome those?
So like probably all entrepreneurs, we always argue, top one is always, capital, right? And so that's always a big one. But then the other one is, just distribution. So how we go about scaling, or not so much scaling, but figuring out those pipelines that we want to target. And then, getting our foot in the door. I would say those are like our biggest ones that we've tried that keep me up at night. And, obviously I want to have a strong team and be able to build a big team, but then sometimes that requires, capital, commitment from your team, and employees. So, those are things that keep me up at night. But again, the revenue aspect, it's a push and pull. So do we get more capital, or do we, figure out ways to increase our revenues? And so we're doing a mix of both right now. And like we've said before, it's just kind of like a waiting game sometimes, and you kind of just keep pushing, making things happen as those other things kind of come to fruition.
And you mentioned distribution as a obstacle, as really opportunity, I guess, for you as well, right? Because we have a lot of different types of individuals that do listen in to the show. What would be a good distribution partner for you in that respect? Is it like a financial institution? Is it an organization that's in financial services but doesn't do, planning like this? Can you maybe shed some light on that?
Yeah, so we're looking at in three buckets. So from the employer standpoint, if you're looking to offer like benefits to employees, around financial coaching to help your employees kind of have a better lifestyle, so they aren't coming to work stressed or worrying about pay, things like that, or about their finances. That's one avenue that we're looking at and started talking to some employers about. The other is you mentioned financial institutions, or what I call like financial counselors. These are people that are solely focused on this space, but usually have like a higher end amount of debt audience that they're looking for. And so usually, they're talking to people that have tens of thousands of debts and won't necessarily work with someone that has, 10K or less. But, the average consumer has around, maybe $2,000 to $7,000 of consumer debt. So that's our sweet spot. And so we try to work kind of in tandem with them. And then lastly, kind of just other personal finance blogs, websites, organizations that are focused around financial literacy. So nonprofits, we're always looking to work with companies like Operation Hope, or some of the events and organizations that banks are using around their CRA credits to offer and promote financial literacy. So those are our three big buckets that we're looking at right now.
It's definitely a wide range of organizations that seems like could really benefit from a partnership with Qoins. If I look at some of the larger employers, financial wellness is a very big topic, right? Especially as we just discussed earlier, right? A lot of people coming out of college having that student loan debt, not necessarily knowing the correct path to paying that off while accumulating other debt as well, such as credit cards and so forth. That could definitely be a great area for you as well. So kudos, definitely keep heading down that path. Speaking about offerings, I would love to understand, like, kind of from what your standpoint is, what really excites you the most about the Qoins offering?
What excites me the most is kind of the aspect of how we're tying in the technology with the human aspect, kind of built into it. That's in a scalable fashion. And what I mean by that is, you can go to your traditional financial coach and have someone and pay upwards of $100, $200. So price wise might seem like it's expensive. You're only going to get 1 hour out of it, but you do get that human aspect, but not all the time, right? Whereas on the robo-advising side, you get, someone you can text, but at the same time, it's not very personal. You don't build that relationship. You also don't kind of get as much of that accountability, but it's just the technology. And so when I look back and try to figure out how do we go about, really creating a solution that people can, one, understand, but also really make impact around the finances, this is what we came up with. And, we dog food our own product and have now, have over 12,000 customers currently using our product, and quite a few hundred just on the coaching itself. Customers are coming back, asking questions and becoming more vulnerable and just, opening up to us about their situation. And so it's very humbling. It's very exciting. It also puts a lot of things into perspective as to why and how people got into where they are and how they're trying to, not ask for a handout, but more so just kind of like get that push to kind of achieve those goals. And so that's what keeps me going, gets me super excited. Love seeing the numbers too about how much debt we've been able to pay off, $10 million to date. So things like that is just, my mom always says, like, if you're doing something, make sure you're making an impact, not just on yourself, but other people around you. And so that's exactly what I try to focus on. And, this is a very humbling experience, and I love what we do.
Wow, that's super impressive. You paid off $10 million of debt for your customer base. And if I think about kind of the way you described, right, the interconnection between the technology and the human aspect, it's really that human machine loop, right? So knowing where each one picks up within that life cycle, seems to be quite exciting as well. Obviously, not everything is always exciting. There's always, when you're looking, especially in the financial technology sector, right? There's always different threats, internal, external. I just maybe want your perspective on maybe some of your company's biggest threats right now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, some of the things that like you mentioned around the data privacy, things like that. So you're seeing a lot of regulations starting to come into place going into 2020. I wouldn't say they necessarily directly affect us, but I think it at some point can, with like the California Privacy Act, things like that. The biggest thing around our product is the fact that because we are, making payments on behalf of our consumers and facilitating funds, making sure from the regulatory standpoint that we're doing and adhering to everything, and being as secure as possible for our customers so that they have that peace of mind. Those are things that I think about. And then, other stresses obviously is, just figuring out how we continue to grow and evolve with the trends that are coming, because this space, fintech, is just ever evolving and going so fast. And you're starting to see banks kind of start to catch up, and I figure out how they can kind of start working with one another to make some of these changes and implement some of the changes with the government regulators.
Yeah, no, definitely. You're looking into the fintech sector. It's always about compliance, right? A lot of regulatory red tape. That comes with the good and the bad, right? So the good aspect of that is there's, good regulation to protect the consumer who you're also looking to help, right? The bad aspect of that is it costs a lot of money to open up a fintech company to go ahead and help individuals like you're going to help, right? So there's definitely external threats with that, no matter what sector you are in when you're talking in the financial technology space. Absolutely. Now, kind of maybe transitioning outside of Qoins, you as an individual, kind of what really keeps you going, right? Because you mentioned something earlier, which I want to maybe double click on a little bit, which is it can get tough, right? It can get sometimes lonely, right? As an entrepreneur, right, running a company. When it gets tough, what's really driving you to push through that barrier?
For me, it's, I've kind of built that tenacity of just like, there is no failure. Like, you got to keep going. You find solutions to problems any way you can. And for me, I'm a first generation in the US, first one to go to college. First one really for everything in my family. So like, my mom never went to high school, or like stopped right in high school. So, she pushes me, and has taken a lot more risks than I ever will, to put me in a position that I am today. So things like that, is what's drive me kind of to my limits. And then on the other side, like I've had open heart surgery 2 times. We'll have a third by the time I'm 30. And so, things like that, when you go through things like that, you don't really think it's as impactful as you think it'll be. But, having been through it now, having grown up with it, as a child and kind of through my teenage and adulthood now, it's put a lot of things into perspective. And, it can be a lot worse. So that's kind of how I think about life and how I think about, what drives me and why I focus on this specific problem, because, money causes a lot of health issues. Money causes a lot of relationship issues. People think that money will bring happiness, and at the end of the day, it doesn't. But if we understand how to understand how our money works, then, a lot of those things can be mitigated. And so, kind of fun fact, when I started Qoins, I literally had just quit my job to focus on working on Qoins, and I had got sick. And at that point, they told me, Christian, you're gonna have to have a third open heart surgery probably in the next 2 months. I just got off my health insurance, so I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm not even gonna get to start this company. Fast forward, I beat it somehow. I guess the infection that I had, went away, or the medication they gave me was able to kind of kill it or put it into dormancy. But again, like I'll have another one by the time I'm 30. But that type of, stuff that I've been through kind of drives me. And, I think other people see that tenacity in me, and I try to put that amount of effort and perspective into anything that I do now.
And I commend you, man. That's the personal journey yourself, right? Overcoming those obstacles from a health perspective, and kind of using it as a driving force, and then having that family support, right, as well as the expectation almost for, we need you to push through and succeed. That's definitely, I'm sure, a motivating driver, that you're waking up every day and kind of moving forward and moving this company forward with. So, that was quite insightful. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So maybe telling it back to a little quirky question I typically ask almost every person that comes on the show, being a technology show, right, is what gadget, or maybe gadgets, if you will, that you might be totally addicted to that you really can't live without? I'm really curious. And you understand the wide variety of answers I've had in this show. So
gadgets, huh? So I'm actually I'm a really big pen person. Like, I love fountain pens. I don't know why. I got into it when I was younger. I used to love drawing, and then I got into calligraphy. And now, like, at any time I have my pen with me. And this pen, it's not a Mont Blanc. I kind of feel like the Mont Blanc pens are like very somewhat superficial, but I did spend a lot on this particular pen. It's a Parker pen, and I love it. It's a fountain pen. You have to like put cartridges in it and change them out every few months. But yeah, I think like that's somewhere I go everywhere with. Like, I have it with me almost as a symbolization too of my business. When I bought it when I first started, and I was like, this is when I'm going to sign checks with. This is kind of like when I sign deals with. But I just love that pen. So I would say that's the one that I probably can't live without.
I love it, man. It's nostalgic, right? It's real. All right, I love the answer. I really appreciate it. Well, Christian, again, we're kind of wrapping up here. I just want to say again, thank you for coming on the show today, sharing a little bit about your journey, sharing a little bit about Qoins, and then also, you mentioned a couple of things, right? Capital, distribution partners, customers, etc. What's the best way for listeners to learn more about Qoins?
Yeah, so you can check out our website at www.qoins, Qoins with a Q is what I always say, .io. Or you can, shoot me a personal email or at christian@qoins.io. Very simple. I'm also like very, very approachable and able to kind of get in contact with through LinkedIn. LinkedIn's kind of my favorite platform to get in contact with people. So I would say those three.
Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate you coming on the show. And everybody, thank you again for listening in to another episode of Future Tech. Again, your host, Matthew Loughran. And until next time.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Future Tech Radio Show with Matthew Loughran. Please subscribe, share, like, and comment. Tune in next time.